What is good, everybody? Juliana Page here. Hello, hello. I am getting ready to go on a run. It is like the perfect sort of evening hour where it's cooler in the day. The sun's about to set, so it's perfect time to go get a little movement in and then ease into a bit of my evening routine. But I had this word really on my heart today, and I feel like it's hot and ready for somebody, even as a great reminder for myself as well. And it's something that I know personally that I have just not embraced. And it's something that I wish I would have embraced sooner, that I would have had a mentor really encourage me with or speak life over me with. And so even in my quiet time earlier today, this message was just reinforced throughout the day. So that's how I know usually that it's relevant and timely. But even in my quiet time today, I recognized, which was really interesting, that there have been similar things in my life, or I've been interested in certain topics, or I've been involved in certain things that have common themes. Okay. Let's see if I can highlight some of them. So I've always been very interested in inner life and energy and vibration before that even was a thing. I have always been interested in coaching, and I even got certified as a professional life coach. Man, it must have been 12 years ago. And that's something that I've really refined and enhanced over the years and just gotten better and better at. So that's still very much a part of my life, but I still believe the same foundational thoughts about it and the power of it as I did then, right? When I was just completely mind blown that it was a thing, because it wasn't common. Like there wasn't Instagram, there wasn't social media, there wasn't these people talking about it or gladly saying that they're a coach, even if they're not certified or anything, right? So there wasn't even an industry for it. So it felt very strange to me, and I was very young too. So I felt like, who's going to listen to me? I believed a lie. Like, who's going to listen to me, even though I knew I had something to say? So that's really interesting. Residual income and community and mentoring and being divinely guided to the next book, to the next mentor, to the next coach, the next conference, the next resource. I've always really been guided in that way. Visualization, meditation, and the power of that, although that's really changed over the years, there's just common things. And so what I was writing down, though, that's different, and hopefully you can hear this, is that although these things were of interest then, although I knew that they were desires of mine to experience and to have in my life, although I knew I was enmeshed in them, like I was engaged in all of that stuff, and I absolutely was finding so much joy and fulfillment in all that stuff, right? Meeting all these teachers and mentors and having all this experiential education and these really cool things. But what was different then versus now, and the scale that I do it now and how I show up and how I experience it now, was I really did not have alignment then. And I really did not have a strong sense of self then. And I was not confident in my message and who I am as a brand and who I am as a child of God. I didn't have that like core foundation that rooted me. So it very much felt like I was all wings and no roots, right? Like I'm just kind of getting exposed to all this really great stuff, which I love, but like, how do I make that practical for my life? And I really didn't know. I didn't have a background in business. I didn't know then that, you don't always see the whole vision unfold. You usually just get the next step, and that's normal. But I thought that I had to be an expert in technology, and back then technology freaked me out. I thought that I had to, have some sort of business degree in order to manage my first business, right? I had no clue what to start or what steps to take, or I thought that I had to have a certain amount of clients or a certain amount of money in the bank in order to demonstrate or prove that I was successful or that I was called to this thing. And if I didn't have that, then I'm not it. So I didn't have this strong foundational root then, right? Which is interesting because now that is my entire focus, is the alignment and living from the alignment. But I didn't get that then. So then it was still hustle. It was still sort of, you might have heard the phrase like manic manifesting, sort of like that, but it's like anxiety, and I have to do this, or I have to have this outcome. So here's what I'm going to do to get this outcome. So there was no faith. There was no trust. There was no surrender. There was a knowledge and a deep rooted awareness of my gifting and who I am and why I'm called to this, but there wasn't the knowing. Okay? Different. There's like, oh, I think this is maybe what I'm supposed to do, versus I know this is what I'm going to do, and I'm trusting and I'm believing, and this is actually fun, and I'm in a flow versus a force. Okay? So for what it's worth, it was just really neat to see, you know, all of the years of development. But imagine, but I believe, right, all things happen for a reason. But imagine if I knew what I knew now then. So that's one of the things that I'm passionate about, is shortening people's learning curve so they don't have to go through so much chaos and struggle and unnecessary stress and pressure in order to get a certain outcome, because that's just not, in my experience, what it's meant to feel like. Okay, so I wanted to talk about mindset habits, because Lord knows my mindset was not good. I was incredibly fearful around areas of making my way in the world and what that looked like. So how am I going to survive? There was this survival mentality. So I had a lot of survival-based thoughts in my life. I had a lot of fear beliefs around money, which was interesting because that was not ever something that was taught or addressed or talked about in my family at all. I had a lot of fear about relationships and really being able to have really strong, healthy relationships in my life, because I was really accustomed to a lot of dysfunctional relationships that I was exposed to, and people not really knowing how to carry themselves well or communicate. So I was really concerned in the realms of relationship, because I didn't want to be someone that someone needed or someone that was useful. I wanted to be treasured and honored and respected and chosen. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's a very big difference versus like what I learned to be a people pleaser or a doer or a, you know, the fix it person. I didn't want to be that. So I was very, very sensitive to what I was being exposed to or what I was allowing into my life. Okay. So all that to say, I really, really started to recognize that this process can be totally different, but my mindset is what has to change. And so although I felt ready, although I thought I was ready, there was still a lot of heart work that had never been addressed. There was a lot of heart wounds that had never been healed and that I didn't get still enough to heal. They, in different sectors, they call this process the dark night of the soul, but there was a lot of soul work that I had been running from for years because I didn't know what to do or how to heal or how to feel, because there was feelings that I was allowed to feel and feelings that we don't feel, and things that we're allowed to talk about and things that we're not. So I had built patterning of not listening to myself, of not honoring myself, of not respecting myself. So imagine then what I'm going to attract into my life. Jobs where I'm not honored, where I'm not valued, where I'm not appreciated, where I'm not paid well, right? Or relationships where I'm taken advantage of, or it's incredibly dysfunctional, or I'm let down in major ways, because that subconsciously is also my expectancy. That is my vibration, right? Like I'm anticipating that that's going to happen, and it does. So I did not recognize then that that was connected to mindset and inner work. I had no clue at the time. I just kept wondering, man, like, why am I throwing myself and everything that I've got at different things and really like investing all that I have into them and pouring everything, literally my heart, my mind, my energy, all of it into it, only to feel like I'm coming up short. Like, I don't believe that it's supposed to feel like this, but I'm somehow still not breaking through into what I believe it is supposed to feel like. And like, what gives? man, right? Like you can get to that place and you're just like, oh, right? So I'm equating that to, for you all, mindset habits, okay? So what do I mean by that? If you have had a tendency to believe negative for a long period of time, there's a lot of rewiring to do. We are transformed by the renewing of our mind. So there's a lot of renewing to do if you spent so many years programming the wrong narrative, right? Or if you have had a lot of disappointment, if you've experienced a lot of trauma, if you've walked through a lot of pain, but you never really addressed it, you never really talked about it, you kind of pushed it down and kept it moving, which is what a lot of us are trained to do, then that's still imprinted in your soul. That is something that still needs to be brought up, looked at, dealt with. And I believe that a Christ-centered recovery program is the way to do that. But at any rate, going through a healing process is so, so important, because then you can have this new beginning, right? Like you're not bringing all this baggage into the future, because you can have a new location in the same experience. You can have a new relationship in the same experience. You could have a new job in the same experience, because you're still carrying the mixture that's going to make that happen. Okay. So mindset habits, it's being transformed by the renewing of your mind. It's doing a lot of heart healing and repentance, turning from things that no longer serve you. It's recognizing thoughts, and it's actually doing the work to change them so that you can think in alignment with what you see and what you know. Okay, so I'm going to give you some simple processes, because I know that that sounds like outside of yourself. That sounds sometimes uber complex. That sounds like something I don't have time for, yet it's the very thing that we need to do in order to have the experience that we desire. Okay, so one of the processes that I have found very helpful is DBR. DBR. What this stands for is desire, believe, receive. And these are all active words. Desire, believe, receive. This is not like sit, maybe I'm going to get a sign, sit, maybe I'm going to wait for the motivation to like suddenly hit me, sit, scroll social media and try to see like what grabs my attention. No, none of that is active. So decide is, I decide that I have this desire. Because I have this desire, it's permission to pursue. Okay? Because I have this desire, I decide that I'm going to pursue it. The desire is permission enough. The desire is enough. Okay? I know that I've been talked out of my desires many times, so much so that I train myself to talk myself out of desires, right? Like I've done this in terms of picking schools to go to. I've done this in terms of picking majors to study. I've done this in terms of picking internships or picking jobs, just going after what I think I should, or what seems logical or what seems reasonable. But the most whack thing about all that is if you want supernatural results, you can't go after logical and reasonable and realistic, right? But that's how I was programmed, and that's why I was wired. So ultimately that was stronger than faith. Okay, so desire is recognizing that I don't have to earn it, that I don't have to prove that I'm worthy, that I don't have to hustle my way, I don't have to like force my way into suddenly being prepared. The desire is enough, right? The very God that breathed life into me also put these desires inherent in me as well. And because it's there, it's permission enough to pursue. So number one is denier. So denier. Denying your desire is what that is. Denier. But decide that you are going to pursue your desire. So recognize what the desire is. Maybe it's you want to be married. Recognize that that is a desire that you have, that you want to prepare or attract your partner, right? You desire that, okay? So then the next step, number 2, would be believe. Believe. So believe is not just like, I hope that'll happen. I sure hope that works out. If it's meant to be, it'll happen, right? Like that's still not even belief, okay? That's like very weak, not even mustard seed faith, all right? So believe is active again, like I said. So it is giving yourself space to literally sit with that. Okay, entertain it for a second. What would that look like if you already had it now? If you were already married now, how would your life be different? What would you be experiencing? What would you be doing that's different? Would you be sharing a home now, right? Like, would you be preparing meals together? Would you guys run a business together? Like, what in your mind, like when you picture this partner and this life that you have together, like what does that feel like, and how has your life changed because you have that, right? Because a lot of times what we do is we take down our faith, or we take down our belief because we believe that it's not possible. It's been too long. I've been through too many relationships. I'm broken. I'm too old. I'm too whatever, right? You got to cancel all that stuff. Cancel, Control, Alt, Delete, all of that. Come out of agreement with that and get so solid and practice this and hold space for it all the time. All the time. I believe that I am worthy of my desire. I believe that it's going to happen faster than I think. I believe that I am ready to invite that into my life now, right? And then picture again what that's like. So say it is in your life. How is your life different? How do you show up different? I bet you're not desperate. I bet you're not chasing, you're not forcing, you're not trying to figure it out. And you're not in this state of why, God, why, when, God, when, right? Like you're content. So practice that. Practice that so that when you pull it in, right, you're ready. So then the last one, number 3, is receive. So receiving is staying in this active state of, I desire it. My desire is enough, right? I believe that it's happening, that God wants to bring this into my life, and that God is actively preparing me and this partner to meet and to come together in the perfect way and in the perfect timing, right? And so anytime, and it will happen, especially after you decide, anytime a negative belief comes up, like, oh, what am I thinking? Or, oh, that's just silly, or this is not going to happen for me. You've got to cancel it, right? And still affirm what you believe. That's how you receive it. You create space and you hold space until it happens. Okay? And that's the faith walk, right? And you just stay in this state of believing, because believing keeps you in flow, and it just feels way better than unbelief, for sure. For sure. We turn into some really crazy people just because of unbelief. So DBR, decide, believe, receive. And these are all very active things. And if it helps, you can attach more vision to this too. So if you want to, make a Pinterest board, if you want to, with your home on it, or with your your man on there, how he dresses, all the things. Like if you just need to stir up the feelings of it, you can do something like that too. You can just, you can just even have picture frames that are ready to have the person in there, whatever it is. There's things that you can do to kind of stir up your belief and keep that present. So keep that in mind too. I think I even heard, I don't even know when this was, but for example, there was somebody I was listening to, this was forever ago now, but I believe that this was a woman. She might have even been a client, but she was wanting a partner, and simple things like she was taking over the whole closet in her home still, or she was laying in the middle of the bed, right? Which is not creating space for somebody to share that with you. Or the house was very not welcoming to a partner, right? It was just, very much just all about this woman, right? So it wasn't creating space for somebody to come into that, right? So practicing even sleeping on one side of the bed, or having space in the garage for another car, or whatever it might be, creating space in the closet, whatever it is, but the things where you're literally partnering with it to draw it in, different experience. So just something to think about. So the next one is another 3-part process. Again, try these on. If it works, keep it. If it doesn't, throw it away. Flush it, right? But essentially, we learn in the rule of 3s. I have a grad degree in film production, strangely enough. And that's one of the things that we do in film. So if you're ever watching TV shows, or if you're ever watching film, usually there will be a sign, a something that is reinforced 3 times so that we can figure it out as an audience. It's pretty interesting, but we learn in repetition. So I like 3s, but here it is. So the first one, when you are stirring up your faith or stirring up your belief, because that's so, so important, you've got to practice the feeling of it. A lot of times, I would say 90+% of our day, we are operating in feelings of what we don't want, right? Which means our consistent vibration, if you will, our frequency, our radio station, right, is not on the level of what we want to draw in at all. We're operating down here expecting to draw in this. There's no way. It's like you probably heard, right? Eagles can't run with chickens. It doesn't happen. So in order to get up to eagle level, you got to start leveling up. And I'm letting you know this is a lot of mindset work and this is behind the scene work. Okay, so the less distracted you can be, the more focused you can be, the more you get naysayers and haters out of your life, the more you stop comparing yourself to other people, the more that you kind of just clear out all of the extra junk that you get bombarded with every day and you make space for this, the greater your consistency in that new frequency will be. So feeling is how we get there, because emotion, right, is literally energy that we're putting into motion. All right. So what emotions are you practicing every day? And you can train yourself to feel the way you want to feel. How do I know this? The word tells me this, right? For example, the joy of the Lord is our strength. Awesome. But how often, particularly when it's really difficult and challenging in life, do we not choose joy? We choose anger. We choose fear. We choose anxiety. We choose worry. We choose frustration, right? We choose everything but joy, which means we're not operating in our strength. So joy is something that's been freely given. It's something that we can freely activate, but we've got to choose it. We've got to train ourselves in using that, okay? So practice the feelings of what you do want to feel. Now, this, again, does not have to be complicated. You can take 10 minutes, 20 minutes in the morning or in the evening, or you can even do it a couple times a day, depending on how fine-tuned you want to get, right? Or depending on the work that you know that you personally are desiring. Practice the feelings of what you do want to feel. Okay, what does gratitude feel like? What does joy feel like? What does peace feel like? What does contentment feel like? Right? What does presence feel like? What does alignment feel like? Right? And you can listen to meditations as well that call these things forth to reinforce belief. Sometimes too, you can just focus on 3 things that you're grateful for and get into those states, right? Remember 3 times where you just were radically overwhelmed with gratitude. It could be a past experience, it could be recent, it could even be a future experience that just makes you well up with gratitude. Like you just believe that it's happening. And you're so grateful that God wants to partner with you in bringing this desire into manifestation, whatever it is. But if you are practicing the feelings of what you want to feel, I always have vision boards on my phone and I have that on my computer. So it's something that I'm seeing every day. These are things that I usually give myself a time frame. These are things that I want to have happen in 2020. These are things that I want to have happen within the next 6 months, whatever it is. But visually seeing it every day is a really strong practice. So for me anyway, and then sometimes even writing about it helps. I also just love closing my eyes and allowing my mind to start visualizing what it is that I desire. So I do this often. I get into gratitude about the desire coming to pass. Okay. So that's something that you can do, but practice the feeling of it. Practice the feeling of being with your partner. Practice the feeling of living in that new home. Practice the feeling of having that child. Practice the feeling of being able to serve in that ministry. Practice the feeling of running that business and making an impact, right? That you really desire to have. Practice that feeling of getting that promotion, whatever it happens to be. Start practicing that and stop talking yourself out of it or believing less, okay? So that's number 1. Number 2 is partner with God on this, because that is the greatest part about desire and manifestation, is that God delights in giving you the desires of your heart. God delights in prospering his servants. God delights in lavishing his goodness upon us, right? Awesome. So the delight for us is that partnership, is that we're not alone in bringing this desire into being. We're not alone, right? And this connection and this relationship with our creator is amazing. So it's never about things, although practicing the feeling of them is allowing you to know that we are constantly ready for more. We go from glory to glory, from strength to strength, right? And we're meant to live abundant lives, right? God can do exceedingly abundantly above all we dare ask, think, or imagine, but we've got to do some thinking and imagining and partner with God, right? And really just feel that relationship and really get into the presence of being held and loved and cared for by God. Absolutely amazing. So that's number 2. And then number 3 is hold whatever that desire is loosely. A lot of times we want to launch a course and we want to have this many people register for it, or we want to thrive in that business and we have this income goal, or we want to be married by the time we're whatever, right? Or we want to have this kid by the time we're this age. Whatever it happens to be, a lot of times we grip these things and we suffocate basically the flow, the creative energy, right? Like we just shut down the process in a lot of ways when we resist it. So hold it loosely means trust, surrender. Thank you, God, that you're working this out for me. Thank you, God, that you're guiding and establishing my steps. Get back into that place of joy and surrender and humility, right? That God's got a great plan and that he wants you to be happy and fulfilled in it more than you do. Amazing. Okay. So feel it, partner with God, and hold it loosely. And then just to tie in a couple of last thoughts that I jotted down here as far as mindset habits and getting to the place of belief. And belief is a conviction. It's this deep inner knowing. It's nobody has to convince you. You don't need to see it to know it's true. Like you just know it's happening. Okay. So I'll give you an example. One of them that's like one of my favorites, because this was like really after I had experienced a lot of discouragement and disappointment, and this was like the next thing that I was really excited about. And there was a series of me just doing this kind of work, but not recognizing that I was doing it or having no real training in it, but truly seeing these things come to pass to the point where it gave me faith. It gave me the ability to take bigger risks and try again, right? Like, well, if that worked out, then I can go bigger this time. So I see how that's happened in my life, even though I had very little faith. Okay, so one of them was I think I was a freshman in college, and I had come across Fitness Magazine at the time, and they had this, I don't even know if they do anymore, but it was mind, body, and spirit was their like main values, which is wild because those are still very much mine today. But I was like, yes, those are my core values. Like, I'm going to get a job here. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to like figure my life out. I'm going to like arrive. Right. And I'm like really young at this point. I think I'm 16, 17. I'm like little. Right. So I somehow am just thinking about fitness all the time. I'm getting all their magazines. I'm like tearing out the pages, putting together some sort of collection. I am thinking about it. I'm picturing myself in New York. I'm watching Sex and the City all the time. And I'm just picturing myself being there. I've never been to, I'd never been in that environment before. I had no idea what it was going to be like. But I just kept picturing it. And essentially what I did was I set up a internship that didn't exist. And I remember being so nervous. I had like an interview call and I just had papers all over the floor about what I was going to say, what my resume is, why I'm qualified. I just had it like all over and I was so freaking nervous. And I remember getting that call and they interviewed me, and I think there was a couple of calls, but eventually I landed this internship and I was mind blown because I had no grid for it. I had just been believing that I was a good match for it. I didn't even really know what I was going to be doing or what the role was. I just knew that, I had pictured movies. What is that? Like how to lose a guy in 10 days? Is that what it is? I don't know. The one with Kate Hudson where she's running around New York and working in a magazine. I just had these images of what it would look like and what it would feel like. And But that's where I was supposed to be. So it was wild. So that had happened, and absolutely insane. And then through more of my college years, I continued to experience things like this. I managed an experiential education experience in Philadelphia, and then several more internships in radio and magazine and TV production, many different things that were giving me information and still kind of on that path. And then the next great one at that time was I moved to California, and that had been a dream. I didn't know how it was going to be possible. I didn't know any of the details. I didn't know the school I was going to go to, but I knew I was going to California. I knew the ocean was calling me. I knew I was obsessed with palm trees. I knew that I needed to be on the beach every day, letting the wind hit me and like the salt water. Like I knew I was going. And so I'd watch the OC all the time. I'd watch all of these videos. I'd make all my roommates do it with me. We would take over like a fraternity house. We're all watching the OC, like all of these videos. I had like picture frames that were all beach-like. I just was obsessed. I had backgrounds on my computer. I was just like literally picturing it every single day. And I did this probably for the next 3.5 years, and literally down to the wire, I ended up getting accepted into a grad school that landed me right in LA. And it was wild and one of the best adventures. But this was all before I knew any of this. I was not walking with God at the time. I didn't know really the power of my faith. I wasn't always consistent at it. I just, what ultimately was the core belief was I believed that there was more for me. I believe that I was going to figure it out. And I believe that it's going to happen. There's times that I wavered, of course, right? I'm human, but that led me into many more awesome things. But then there was a lot of disappointment. I think that that's what can get us out of having really strong mindset habits is disappointment, discouragement, heartbreak, things that don't go the way we expect or we anticipate, right? And some of the belief that we believe that it's got to be hard, that we believe that it's got to be a struggle, that we believe that it's got to look a certain way and it's got to be done in a certain time. And all of this stuff just builds a ton of resistance. So over several years, I had built up a lot of that. And so that's what I really had to unlearn and work myself out of. And I don't believe that I could do that apart from God. So that's why I believe that you've got to partner with God to do a process like this. And so this is the part that I think is really important. So highlight, one of the greatest abilities that God has given us is the ability to believe. If you don't know that, know it. One of the greatest abilities that God has given us is the ability to believe. And without faith, it is impossible to please God. God does not want you going around the world thinking less of yourself, diminishing the creation that he formed, shaped, and anointed you to be, hating yourself, working against yourself, minimizing yourself. That's not God's plan for you at all, right? But a lot of times what we're accustomed to, what we've been groomed in, what we experience teaches us things that are the complete opposite of what we inherently deep down know. Okay. And the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So we've got to get our mind, our will, our emotions under control, right? Ephesians 1:19, Paul is praying that we would understand the incredible greatness of God's power for those who believe. Whew, right? Ephesians 1:19, Paul prayed that we would understand the incredible greatness of God's power for those who believe. So God has power. He has healing. He has promotion. He has advancement. He has expansion. He has favor. He's got blessings. He's got all of this that's ready, that's lined up, that's queued up for you, but you've got to make a demand on it. And if we don't make the demand on it, it's usually because we don't believe. If we don't believe, we don't think about it. We don't pray about it. We don't make a demand for it. We don't ask for it. We don't knock, right? Ask, receive, right? Like we're not doing those things. So all of our stuff is just hanging out and we're not pulling it down, right? So, but Paul is praying that like, stop all the nonsense. Like my prayer is that you would understand the incredible greatness. Like it's so vast, it's limitless, right? The incredible greatness of God's power for those who believe, not for those who doubt, not for those who question, not for those who waver, right? Do not grow weary. You will reap if you do not faint. There's incredible power for available if you will just believe, okay? Then it says too, in Luke 8:30, Luke 8:30, I believe, if you will only believe. If you will only believe. Not if you only work harder, if you only force yourself, if you only hustle, if you only change everything that you can change, if you only stop that addiction, if you will only believe. If you will only believe. This is telling me this inner work is the important work. We get so obsessed and focused on everything that we can do out here and everything that's going on out here, and the enemy loves that. If you will only believe. If you will only believe that your desire is enough, if you will only believe that you're worthy, if you will only believe in the incredible greatness of God's power and how much he loves you and how much he wants to lavish his goodness upon you, if you will only believe, right? So power, God's power is only activated when we believe. And a lot of times we are believing completely out of alignment with God, with God's promises, with God's best for our life, with our desires. We've convinced ourselves somehow that we're not worthy of what we desire, that that's for some people, but not us. That I'm not even going to think about it, because if I think about it, I'm just going to feel bad because I know that I can't have that. Lies, lies, if you will only believe. So my encouragement to you on today is to create space. Believe. Create space to desire what you desire. Decide that you're worthy of that. Just because you have the desire. Not because you have the degree, not because you have the certification, not because you're so awesome, special, and unique. You are, but just having the desire is enough, right? And then believe. Just believe. Believe. Think on it. Imagine it. Play it out. Expose yourself to experiences, things that would be like that. And then receive it. Make space for it. Let it come to you. Stop resisting. All right? All right, guys, that was a good one. Seriously, it might be one to listen to again. If you are interested in doing more work like this, I do a self-mastery study. I have a self-mastery course. It's a 6-week course. It's over on julianapage.com. What is most awesome about this is that I believe great leaders that have really perfected manifesting in their own way, they're masters. Right? They've mastered this inner life. Okay. So self-mastery, I believe, is where it's at. So that course is amazing. You can go check that out. It's over on julianapage.com. There's also a coaching component as well, because that's where a lot of the accountability comes in. That's where really working out some of these beliefs are. That's where a lot of powerful breakthrough can happen in an accelerated period of time. So coaching, hands down. Whew, one of my absolute favorite things. It's what I devote my life to, and it is my fave. So that's over there as well. There's a couple of really great books too. One that I'm thinking of particularly on this topic is God's Vibes Matter, Co-Laboring with God. So all of this you can find in julianapage.com. So go have fun, go explore. You can also listen to the Spirit-Filled Real Talk podcast. It's every Saturday over on Spotify and the Apple Podcast app, and we just talk all things real talk, back with truth. So that's really good to start rewiring your brain if you enjoy this kind of work and just want to receive and be washed in the word a little bit. So that is a really great resource. And then if you want to follow me over on IG, that's where I'm most active. It's at Miss Juliana Page. All right, guys, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do that so that you can see any new video that comes up. If this video helped you, or if you're thinking of a friend too that this could bless, copy the link and share the friend sharing.